So good afternoon. My name is Iber Poma. I work in the Educational Technology Office at Hostos Community College. And today, this is our third presentation. I'm hoping that you are enjoying your day with us. And the presentation that we're about to see is collaborations, creating a quality virtual new student orientation with no budget. And the presenters are Manny Lopez, Associate Dean, Student Development, Albert Robinson, Associate Director, Center for Teaching and Learning and Technology, and Linda McKernan, Confidential Executive Coordinator for the Vice President of Student Success, all of them from Bronx Community College.
Hey.
Already, here we go.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Eber. I'm certainly enjoying today's conference, and welcome and good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Manny Lopez. I'm the Associate Dean for Student Development. I am joined by my exceptional colleagues, Albert Robinson and Linda McKernan. We're here to share information on designing and implementing a quality new student orientation with literally no budget. Literally no budget. So in these short 30 minutes, now about 27, we will cover frameworks for success, content development, communications plan, NSO overview, technology used, a little bit of data, and some Q&A. So we're off to a good start. Thank you for being here. And let's go to the next slide, please. So over 1 year ago, right, all of us maybe struggled a little bit with the rapid transition to an online modality. Transitioning many of our projects was a bit of a challenge. And Albert, Linda, and myself, we asked ourselves, how do we start? Where do we start? How do we start to get a new student orientation from an in-person service modality instruction to students to an online modality? And once reflecting on that, we started to ask ourselves, what are the values? What are our values? What's the values to the students? What's the value to the institution? And that was our starting point. That's our launching pad in some ways. The value of NSO to students, we were asking ourselves, what is it that puts them on the right path to their academic career, to their tenure at BCC? What's the value to the college in retaining students and informing students? Our values of collegiality is imperative to all of this. That will be a running theme in this presentation, so it's worth mentioning again. Collegiality and creating projects together, respect for one another, and having that common care for the students is something that runs throughout our work. And I think you'll see in this presentation, and again, understanding and appreciating the historical value for students in the past, moving into the future. Next slide, please. So this diagram is an excellent diagram, I think, as a solid framework for our success with developing new student orientation, but other projects as well. So communication, structure, outcomes, and pedagogy. Communications, we will, and I'll run through each of these really quickly. Communications, we had at least 15 partners on campus. So while the three of us did most of the heavy lifting, we have partners in almost definitely in every division, but in many departments, academic departments, service departments, IT throughout the college. So not only was the intention imperative, but our communications about the intention and what were the outcomes that we were looking for were imperative. Communicating the structure. So first we had to understand our structure and then articulate that with our colleagues in a way that made sense to them so that the deliverables would come back in a way that would be helpful, not only for us, but that translates directly in an understandable, digestible way to the students. Hence the pedagogy. We thought about not just how to deliver content, but how do students receive this information. So you'll see, and we'll talk a little bit about later, but I'll highlight here quickly that we thought about the multiple sensory experience of students. So good graphics, visual experience, along with the closed captioning. Embedded into new student orientation are knowledge checks to reinforce learning, not quizzes, but knowledge checks to sort of act heuristically to reinforce what was being learned, self-paced setup for students, and also offering students feedback via email in order to nudge them and offer them additional opportunities to go through these learning experiences to get them off to the right start. And certainly all good projects require some sort of data and paying attention to the data to improve our services. Next slide, next person.
Thank you, Manny. So for all that you said, thank you. So this slide represents a mind map of my thought processes that took place when we created version 1 of New Student Orientation. And the first thing to do was to figure out how we were going to do this. What was the platform that we were going to use? And outsourcing a program or a system was not an option for us. So we had to use what we already had access to. We ultimately went with Blackboard. We knew that it worked, and we knew that students would have to regularly access Blackboard for their classes. And we did not want to teach a student a new system or a new platform. So Blackboard it was. From there, we reached out to Albert from CTLT and for the help, which leads to step 2, which was logistics. And what I mean by logistics was that we really needed to have a deep understanding of how students access Blackboard to ensure a seamless process for them. Part 3 was to build the communication plan for students using what we learned in step 2. And simultaneously between step 2 and 3, we were developing the pedagogical content for the NSO program and really choosing presenters and presentations that were crucial to student success. And finally, the fun part, which was creating content and bringing the program together. Oops. So this slide is a depiction of step 2 that I mentioned in the previous slide, which was logistics, and a little bit of a background into how this came about. So I really needed to truly understand and know what the student experience was in accessing all of these technologies. Not only that, but I needed to have a deep understanding of how all of these technologies worked together in order and how they were affected by one another. Additionally, we needed to truly understand the steps that a student needed to take in order to access each one of these programs and systems. And finally, how long each system took to sync in order for the information to be populated. Okay, so building off of this understanding, I was able to develop a clear communication plan that did not overwhelm the student, but rather nudge them through each step in order to complete NSO. The plan consists of 3 automated emails from Hobson's, where we collaborated with admissions on the execution and language development. And these 3 messages gave the student one step that they needed to complete in order to access Blackboard and ultimately NSO. The automated messages were timed based off of the previous slide's logistics plan and were selected based on that deep understanding of how long each system took to process their information. And by the 3rd message, the student was able to access and complete NSO. After the program was open for about 2 weeks or so, we then started to send manual email reminders, like the reminder that you see on this slide. And the messages were only sent to students who had not completed NSO, and it gave them their NSO status and their grade at that moment in time. All new students who were registered for classes by the NSO launch date also received one text message telling them that, hey, NSO is open, please go and complete NSO. And then again, just like the reminder emails, they also got reminder text messages that were sent manually only to students who did not complete NSO. Other parts of our communication plan includes social media campaigns throughout several college accounts. And I would be remiss to not mention, we collaborated with admissions and academic advising heavily on the promotion of completion of NSO. Now I'm going to pass it over to Manny.
Hey, okay, so what you see here is an overview of the modules that are our new student orientation with a brief description and the times for each module. So we have 10 modules, and these modules are the modules we think are essential for new freshmen, transfer, and readmits. We've come up with these topics after many years of working on new student orientation, after exploring what students' needs and questions are when they first start at an institution of higher education. And we try to synthesize the most important information within these modules so that students can capture that and utilize it throughout their tenure at BCC. The order of slides are intentional. You'll see, as an example, there's a balance of content that is heavy with those that are fun or perceived more useful than others. So you'll see 3, student life and engagement is sandwiched between financial aid and judicial affairs. Those can be a little bit more content heavy. So we try to break up that so that students can feel a little bit more interested in balance their attention. Of course, at the beginning, we have proper welcomes, but rather than only just the talking heads, we include welcomes from students who are excited to have other students there. We reassure them that they've made the right decision, and we thank them for choosing Bronx Community College, right? We know students have options, so thanking them is a small snippet of some of the things that we do within orientation that makes them feel welcomed, hopefully. And then we close with growth mindset and next steps. Growth mindset, we introduce the concepts of neuroplasticity. We talk about the importance of effort and how learning and improving is a process, not something that you're born with. And those concepts are carried over into the freshman year seminar that many of our first semester students takes. So that's an overview there. And I think these 10 modules have been well received by our students based on some of the data you'll see later.
And then what you see in now is the NSO was born. Manny and Linda, when we first met, and we'll continue to talk about this. Communication is very important, and collaboration to be successful at creating something like this. When we met, they had a vision, and they said, if you could take our vision and turn it into technology. And I said, wow, okay, I'll try. And I worked on it many hours before I gave them a first look. And when they did see a first look, this is what they saw. So this is what the students see right at the beginning when they begin the new student orientation. If they were to click on any of those other links on the left, it'll tell them that they have to complete the other parts before they can see information from any of the other sections. So this was the first look, what we saw, and then we just continue, of course, to make little minor changes and edits to it. Next slide, please, Linda. So the technology that we use, Blackboard, of course, is the one that Linda mentioned that we really wanted to use something that based on our budget and something that mostly everyone is familiar with, including the people that participated and collaborated with us. So we use Blackboard. A lot of the features we used in there, adaptive release to make things turn on and off. We were able to embed the videos, PDFs. We created folders, links. It gave us the ability to do all of that stuff. One other thing that we had to do that was a manual process was, of course, the students needed to be added manually, which that wasn't, it wasn't a big deal. We just had to work out a process for getting that done. And Linda kind of led the way on that. So that was easy to get through that part. PowerPoint, we had to figure out a way, something that people were familiar with to create their videos. The people from that collaborated with us from different departments, we had to make it easy for them to do it. Remember, this is all being done remotely. We couldn't bring them all in the lab and say, hey, sit down and start to record. So Linda and I and Manny talked about it. We decided to use PowerPoint. Linda worked with them and helped them to create the videos. And some people even use the webcam feature where they can have their, talking head in there for a little bit while they were introducing the content. To edit some of those videos, Linda worked with them with iMovie to do some basic editing. That was the quickest and easiest software that we can recommend to them to do that if they needed editing. Some people really didn't need editing at all, and some did. So iMovie was that. Where we stored the videos, now we had many of options. There's always YouTube, but at BCC we have Usia. If you're not familiar with that, some campuses have it. It's a video repository, but it does other things as well. So we stored the videos there. For the embed code to put the videos in Blackboard, it automatically generates that. So all we have to do is add that into the embed area in Blackboard. It does auto captioning. So the only thing that we had to do was review the captioning afterwards and make any edits, which we worked with the Disability Services Office on that as well, because being that they're the experts on some of that stuff. It was a little bit of work to edit a lot of the captioning, but we had to figure out a process. So we worked on a process and we got through that, and we were able to get over, get past that. Next slide, Linda. So because we had the adaptive release and mock reviewed on and throughout the course, the knowledge check questions was something that we played around with. At first, we just had it as a quiz, which we decided to move away from that because we thought that would have made it a little more stringent on the student to say, oh, wow, I'm taking a course, so now I need to pass this quiz. So we changed the name to knowledge check. And basically, some of it has like 1 to 3 questions depending on the part. And all they have to do is check their knowledge or make sure that they are learning what we were trying to show them in the videos. So they would get past that, and then it would unlock the next section of the NSO. So we really didn't have any problems with that. There was a few of the sections that we had 2 of the parts together, but we now separated them. So some students ran into a little bit of problems with that because they didn't realize there was 2 parts to a section. So Linda and Manny worked with people in their team, and they decided to separate it, and that's what we will be doing for the fall. Well, it'll be separated. And then we added another part, which was the next step video that showed them what to do next, what the next steps are, who to contact, some more reminders in there. And it had a link that also became available for them to get to the device loaner application, because BCC created in collaboration with IT, they had a site set up where students can go there and request to borrow a laptop, whether it's a Chrome or iPad, for them to use with Blackboard. So we were able to embed that in there, so it'll be unlocked once they complete the last step of the NSO. And by doing all of that, learning was actually taking place. It wasn't just getting through the NSO. they were learning about all of the different parts and the presentations that were in the NSO. So they were learning and didn't even know it, but we didn't trick them. It was our purpose to just, we wanted them to learn as well. Next slide, Linda.
Thanks, Albert. So a little bit of data. So the fun part for me, at least. In the fall, as you see on the screen, in the fall, we had 2,892 students eligible to participate in new student orientation. This number for both actually includes all new freshmen, transfer, and readmit students. So out of that 2,892 in the fall, 1,493 completed. So we're looking at about 51%. In the spring, we had 1,654 students eligible to complete and 773 completed, so about 46%. So we're averaging about a 50% completion between all parties. In the bottom two charts, you see the completion rate by student group by semester. So the first one is the fall and the second one is the spring 21 semester. And the pattern that we're seeing is that freshmen and transfer are more likely to complete, whereas freshmen and readmit are least likely to complete the NSO program. And we're looking about a 50% split between the freshmen completing or not completing the program. And that's the most concerning point that we're working towards addressing in future, for the fall, actually fall 21 semester and future semesters moving forward. So what else have we learned? Well, we've been able to more concretely identify that students who are completing NSO are gaining higher GPAs compared to their peers that have not completed. In the first chart you see on the right, NSO completers gained an average GPA of 2.69 in the spring semester, whereas students that had no action on NSO had a 1.74 GPA by the midterm. And that we know this thanks to the help of our institutional research team, again, collaboration. And we see that, yeah. Manny, I'm tossing it over to you for the next bullet.
Sure. So students are, hold on. Which one am I doing? Second or third bullet?
Third, sorry.
Third, okay. So, no, so Albert should speak to the Blackboard, yes?
Yeah, I'll just speak quickly. What we didn't anticipate happening was because of the way we designed the NSO and Blackboard, it was actually preparing them to use Blackboard, which is something that we didn't plan. So they were better prepared for taking courses using Blackboard because it used a lot of the things that instructors use, you know, the knowledge check, playing videos, adaptive release, releasing things, all of those features is what instructors use. So we got a bonus out of that one. Back to you, Manny.
Yes, sir. And that's an important bonus. Some of the other bonuses that we were not expecting include the increase in participation in new student orientation. So this is the first time BCC, the last two times we've done it, is the first time we've done new student orientation fully online. Prior to that, it's always been in person. And our participation has been about up to 30%, thereabouts. But online orientation has really increased our participation up to over 50%. So that's significant. With the additional tweaks and things that we've learned that we'll modify, I'm confident that those numbers will be increased. Again, new student orientation at BCC is not required. It's not mandatory. They're not paying for it the way some institutions do. You have to pay to participate in NSO. So if you don't go, you're losing money. That's not what this is. This is all voluntary. And to have this much involvement is something that we're proud of. And via anecdotal feedback, at least students, we're getting good feedback from support service offices like the Office of Disability Services and others that say, hey, I'm getting a increased engagement from students because they said they learned about my office from new student orientation. So that's all good news. And for sure, we're on the right trajectory with this. And a lot of it is because of our care and collaboration and intention to do good work for students.
Thank you, Manny. That's our presentation for today. So we're ready to take some questions if you guys have them.
And usually when there's no questions, that means that we've answered everything you could have possibly asked yourself or asked us ahead of time. Hey, Laura, thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thanks, Kelly.
Laura.
So that was a great presentation. Thank you, guys. I guess there are no questions.
Well, we have 2 minutes now. We could look at each other until
Sure.
questions comes in.
And student
like
engagement
questions.
move if I've ever heard it, Manny.
So the question from Laura was, did we do everything? Absolutely. Well, the three of us didn't do everything, but the three of us did everything to make this come to fruition. And each element and each person was essential. Again, we needed the specialists like financial aid, Margaret Nelson, to do her presentation. We needed Jasenia to audio record and video record her presentation. So without that, we don't have content. But without Albert, we don't have the blackboard and the tech. Without Linda, we don't have the communications. Without me, I think I add value in thinking about the pedagogy in some of the important aspects of the vision. So every element is imperative. And it just so happens that the three of us are really on the same wavelength about how important this work is. And so we feed off each other and support each other with that.
Yeah, and I just want to say quickly, because we, all three of us and everyone at BCC value our students, this was something that we didn't mind reprioritizing our tasks that we have and putting this as number one to get this done, so we can, really reach out to those freshmen and the readmit students. And I want to give those two guys a plug, Linda and Manny, because they actually made it pretty easy for me, because they knew what they wanted. It was clear. It was just up to me to try to figure out if I can, everything that they want, can it be converted to technology? Were there a few things that wasn't? No, but we communicated on it, and we compromised and we discussed it. But for the most part, collaboration is key for the success of something like this.
Thank you very much. And then we're going to move to the next one. You're welcome to stay, of course.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.